All right, we'll let a few more people filter in here, but we will get started. Good afternoon and welcome to this Creatio online user group. My name is Deneen Madura. I'm the marketing director here at Technology Advisors. Today, I am happy to introduce a special guest host to present some exciting updates to Creatio's reports and analytics, including changes to functionality and data analytics tools specifically. So we have a lot of helpful information to go over today. I won't dilly-dally too long, but I just want to preface the presentation by mentioning that we are recording this and we will email the recording to you within 24 hours of today's user group. If you have any questions throughout, go ahead and chat them over and we will get to all those questions by the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest host today, Nandish Madapati. Nandish is the Enterprise Solutions Manager at Creatio, and he has graciously offered to dive into these new features and functions with us today. So I'm going to pass that control over to Nandish so he can get us started, and we'll
Thanks,
see
Deneen.
what he has in store.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deneen. And let me share my screen. And swap the presenter view. Let me know if you can see the presentation in full mode.
Looks good on my end.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the introduction. And personally speaking, Deneen, the pleasure is all mine to be on this webinar. Very happy to share the latest and greatest features that is available in Creatio version 7.7.16.1 and also .2. Just a little bit background about myself. So I've been in the industry for about 20 years. So I'm a pretty old guy in that respect. I've been a fairly long CRM user, consumer from a service perspective. I started using DMC Remedy right around the year 2000. Knowledge base when CRM was I would say not fully used in the sales of the service industry, but it was beginning to get its footholdings. I've also been a Salesforce user back in the year 2007 when cloud technology was still in its infancy. There was a lot of doubts in that. And 6 years prior to joining Creatio, I also worked at Oracle Corporation in their CX division, specifically on the service automation side. I have a good perspective of what is going on in the evolution of CRM industry. So with that, I know I just want to set the expectations about what we're going to see in here. So most of these updates are, I would want to focus on the business process side and on low-code technology. So we'll be using a lot of slides. So I kind of apologize to that in the background. But to be fair, these presentations do have quite a bit of animation. So much as I like to hear me drone on, you'll also get to see some cool animations on the slides. And towards when I get into the analytics portion, I'm going to switch gears, flip over to Creatio and show you some of the neat things that are available from the analytics perspective, and then give you a roadmap of what are some of the new dashboards that are upcoming in subsequent year, specifically year 2020, 2021, and beyond. And then we will wrap it up with 7.16.2 to cool features or updates, and then have some Q&A. So with that, I'll flip over to the next slide. So everybody knows that Creatio is an intersection of 3 distinct attributes, right? One is obviously the unified CRM, one of the very rare CRM that has sales, service, and marketing all combined into one. But what makes Creatio unique is the ability to have a very strong business process engine. But not only that, but serve that through low-code platform. So what we are trying to do is to have that when you create this Venn diagram and there's an intersection of these 3 things coming together, that's where Creatio comes in. And oftentimes we beat other CRM because they don't have low code, or we can beat low code because they don't have CRM. So that's a pretty unique case. And increasingly the focus primarily from Creatio's side, and I specifically mean Catherine, our CEO, she is focused mainly on the low code platform. So what we are trying to do going forward, and maybe I'm letting out a little secret in here, is that we want people to start building applications on a low-code platform. And towards the end, I'm going to talk about how we are beginning to get into that journey of letting our customers do so. So first things first, we want to focus on business process. And as everybody probably knows from the specifically from the from previous webinars, is that a lot of these things are done in our studio part, right? So one thing that you might have noticed is that the user interface has drastically changed. When I mean drastically changed, what I mean is that if you have been a long time studio free users, you'll now see that the interface or the elements of, say, task, emails, approvals are matching up very nicely between studio free and studio enterprise. And that is deliberate because we are moving into that BPM and 2.0 notations, right? So things are very simple in terms of simplification of creating tasks. So for example, if you want to create user actions, everything is nicely grouped at the very top. If you're focused on system actions, you're going to do that, drag and drop, and then change the element that you want to do. For example, the user actions, by default, we know that the mostly requested feature happens to be task management, and therefore that's what it is done. And then simply use the gear icon to change it to a different attribute. It's all based upon feedback. It's based upon human behavior in terms of building business processes. The second part is making sure that the process flow management is as simple as possible. So as you can see from the animation, and I did promise animations in here, right? Because it's much easier to do that rather than go and open up a demo script or a demo instance. So as you can see that when we take a specific gateway, whether that be an exclusive or and parallel gateway, whatever that may be, as soon as you delete it, all of the connecting elements, whether that be the email or whether that be a subsequent sub-process, are automatically tagged to the next account or the next task. So this is making things much more simplified in terms of there is no handicapped or free-floating business processes. It's all in making sure that the user experience of building business processes is at most importance, as most easy for new users to start building business processes in Studio. Moving on to the next thing, further validation, right? So oftentimes when you're a brand new user, there are instances maybe you should not be creating a workflow. Say in this case, the task is a very important. This task cannot precede the start element. It has to come subsequent to that, right? So therefore, you can assign a task over here, or over there, but you cannot assign it to the start event because that is pointless. You cannot have that. It is kind of blocking you, as you can see from the screen. And also, as soon as you change that email to a start event, for example, you can see that the previous task was already removed. So again, focused on user experience, making sure that we are standardized on BPM and 2.0, making sure that new users, as they transition from Studio Free, where we expect them to build a lot of these business processes and come over to Studio Enterprise to build these business processes, we don't want them to learn new applications. We want it to be as seamless as possible. Now, over here, we have a OR gate, right? So people who are familiar with this, which simply means that either you're going to go into this task or into this task. But in certain situations where the gateways goes from a OR into a parallel gateway, right? So right now you're changing it to parallel gateway, which means that you can have workflows that can go in here and go in here. You can see that immediately it made that automatically what was previously a cross mark in here, as you can see from the screen, has been eliminated when you take and change the gateway to parallel gateway, indicating that it can have multiple workflows. Again, everything, it's all thoughtful to make sure that the user experience is the most important one. Now, for people who have used event subprocesses, or for people who have not used event subprocesses, the idea here is that subprocesses are used anytime you want to call a process over and over and over again. So what that would mean from a day-to-day life perspective is that if you're working with, say, order management, and when you're working with order management, discounts keeps changing, right? So what that means is when discounts keeps changing, you may have to get a approval over and over again from Creatio, or from your manager, sorry. In that case, depending upon what has transpired, in this case, what we are saying is we're putting out a message saying that the products in the order has updated. So as soon as that message is received, anytime this message is received, that is going to trigger an event subprocess. It's going to come in here And then from there, you're going to build a process to get approval or whatever that process needs to be called over and over again. Therefore, you can now build event subprocess as a separate workspace automatically in Studio Enterprise. Again, very powerful, making it very simple for brand new users. Moving on, we're also noticing that processes can get very complex. These days, when I talk to many of my customers or prospects, they are working with business processes that can span different departments, right? So for example, from a sales perspective, from an approval, it can go into sales manager approval, then it has to go into legal for contract management, back and forth. So there's a lot of those things that can happen. So in terms of managing those complex work processes and having swim lanes, you can now extend that from Studio Free into Studio Enterprise as well. So that makes things much more easier. And also, adding process elements to the diagram is now very simplified, right? So I think we talked about this a little bit earlier in terms of grouping all of these elements together. So this is everything related to user actions. This is system actions, start events, and gateways. So all of those are grouped together. You simply drag and drop, and then you can also drag and drop right in the studio space itself to make things more simple. And here is another optimizing of tasks. So what this simply means is that as and when we create a task, so in this case, a user action, and if you want to change that for whatever reason to system actions, you don't have to delete it, then drag another one. You can simply right click on that. It pops up a new dialog, open up that gear icon, and then you can either change it to another user action or simply select the system actions at the bottom and select the necessary one, whether that be a read data, whether that be modifying data or deleting data, whatever that may be. So it's another way of making sure that whatever business processes is, it's much more simpler. The other pain point that people frequently encounter as and when the business process gets very complex is that you have to start using the slider bar, right, to understand where it comes in. So what we have done is to give a preview, so which you can manually launch it by clicking on that icon. So that brings up the dialog box, and then you can either simply left click and move the business process over there, or use that dialog box over here to move the process as well. So there are two ways in which you can move those complex processes and making sure that you're getting the full view of what is going on from a business process. Again, all focused on user experience. And this is telling you that Creatio is taking the business process workflow very seriously in terms of how we want to proceed and how we want to perceive our customers continuing to leverage the low-code technology in Creatio to build newer, cooler application and also newer and cooler business processes. Now, one of the frequent complaints that that I get when I talk to prospects when they are talking about low-code technology is that they don't have a mechanism to build collaboratively tools for business processes, right? And for many people in this audience, you're probably familiar about the Studio Free. So Studio Free is a free application that is available on Creatio's website, where you can build workflows. And not only build workflows, but also attach documentation, like the way you're seeing in here. This is Studio Free. And then either export them directly as a BPMN. So what that means is it'll bring in the workflow and then import it directly into Studio Enterprise and have that workflow. And simply all you have to do is to then assign different tasks for each of these in terms of what those tasks should be, what those emails should be, what sub-process should this be pointing to, and you're good to go. That's how simple it is. So this is solving one of the long-standing issues that people have when it comes to creating business processes. The other workaround, the only other solution prior to this was either using Microsoft Visio, which was typically a picture or a photograph, and it was very difficult to do that. So we can also import a JPEG image into Studio Free or a PNG image into, or an image file into Studio Free, convert that into BPMN, and then bring that into Studio Enterprise. So those are many ways in which you can solve those long-standing issues about working collaboratively and build business processes. Now, here are a couple more options on managing process logs. So we have made the process log more efficient in terms of what kind of settings that you want to display. So a lot of process log, especially when you're running a very complex business processes, whether that be a sales or service or whatever that may be, that can run multiple business process in the background that can create multiple logs. So you can make it much more simpler in terms of what is going on in terms of log operations. And we're also using RabbitmQ as a process of putting out messages about process logs into Creatio. So that is basically, in summary, a full-blown functionality from 7.16 and 7.16.1 in terms of business processes and Studio in particular. So the whole idea is to focus on user experience. Like I said earlier, our CEO, Catherine, is very focused on making sure that our customers continue to use Creatio to build cool technologies or cool applications or cool business processes or task management using Creatio, and therefore we want to make sure that we are industry standard. Recently, maybe about 2 months ago, we were talking to a very large management consulting firms, and they were looking at implementing low-code technology in multiple areas, right? So for example, the use cases was when the management consulting firm has to produce documentations to their customers, it has to go through the necessary auditing purposes, making sure the logos are correct, making sure the formatting is correct. So there's a separate team that manages that document approval process. So they were looking to use Creatio to do that task management, queuing, SLAs, and so on and so forth through the portal platform. One of the key requirements that they wanted to do was talk about exit cost, right? So our exit barriers. So they did not want to tie in to a low-code technology that 5 years down the line, they decide that they want to exit out of that, but now they are stuck with this proprietary business processes workflow that they cannot leverage. So we talked about Creatio and how using that BPMN 2.0 notation, which is the industry standard, they'll be able to bring all of those workflows into another applications 5 years down the line, just in case Creatio does not work out. So there are many ways in which you can position Creatio as the best tool, not only from building workflows, but also making sure that from a total cost of ownership, that Creatio has thought about all of these things that typically developers don't think about. So we have covered BPMN, and you probably have got a little tired of me talking about BPMN quite a bit. So let's switch gears and look at the second superpower, low-code platform. We'll not be looking at unified CRM because I think many of you already know that. So we'll be only looking at these two. So let's switch gears and take a look at low-code platform. So what we are trying to do, or rather what's Catherine's vision at Creatio, is we want people to start thinking Creatio not only as a business process platform, but also as a low-code platform to build new applications. Now, keep in mind that we're not talking about full-blown CRM or anything like that. Low-code applications typically tend to be more niche applications, right? So for example, from a financial perspective, this could be a contract management, or it could be from a private hedge fund or a private equity, it could be a capital call process. From a banking side, it could be a credit card approval process. So we're talking about a niche area, but you don't want to spend a lot of developer resources in order to do so. But in order to do that, Creatio needs to provide a lot more than just a low-code platform, a studio platform, and that's what we're doing in here. So when you take a look at this from a 4 big buckets, the number one, table stakes, right? This process library and diagram designer. We covered that quite a bit in the few slides through the Studio Free and also the Studio Enterprise. But as I was going towards the very end, I was talking about process log. So you also not only need to do that, but also from an administration perspective, you need to have good tools to do that, right? In terms of who can run that business process, who has the ability to do that, looking at process log and things of that, right? And ditto with application lifecycle management, right? And how quickly can you do some change delivery? How can you get some feedback and make continuous improvement and continuous delivery on those local platforms? And also not only that, but from extending what is available in low-code platform, whether that be through the chatbot, whether that be through the case designer. So some of them will obviously be leveraging our CRM platform. So for example, case designer is already there, machine learning is already there, section wizard is already there, right? So those things are already there, integrations is already there. But for chatbot, either you can use vSender as one of the platforms, or the other times we're also thinking about maybe white labeling one of those solutions inside of Creatio to provide a full-blown platform, so that whether you're serving applications through a single channel, multi-channel, or omni-channel, you have a platform of low-code technology through Creatio that will help you build those cool applications. So specifically jumping into the low-code side itself, we are now looking at the low-code from a machine language perspective, right? So everybody knows about machine learning and the kind of predictions that we can do. So typically, and what you're seeing in here is obviously the lead scoring. So that lead scoring algorithm is provided out of the box with our CRM technology, obviously. And then the validation is done through the accuracy, 1.0 being the best. Obviously, you're not going to hit that, but you can get pretty close to it. And of course, it takes a couple of trainings of that model as well. But in addition to that, we can also give some different weightages to different parameters that define those models. So for example, if you're looking at from a lead management, maybe you want to focus on customers that have a higher revenue, right? So if you're in the account section, if you know what the revenue of that account is, number of employees, so typically you want to focus on lead conversions of those accounts and use that as a lead scoring parameters to indicate, oh, how well are we doing in terms of deciding which leads are the best based upon different customer segmentation. So you can assign different weightages to make sure that you can have the best predictions based on that. But in also 7.16, we have extended that not only from a predicting a numerical value, but also from a recommendation perspective. So this is a great way for financial industry, as and when, when the client is looking at it from a savings account or a checking account, can you then serve credit cards, right? So in Creatio, you can build a custom object called householding, and the householding could be anybody, family members, or any contacts that share the same home address, right? So this could be a father, a mother, maybe an adult son, or a teenage child, or whatever that may be. They're all sharing the same addresses. And then depending upon, you can kind of group them together into a householding concept. And when you group them together as a householding concept, and then you understand what kind of product settings does that household have. Maybe there is a checking account, maybe there's a savings account, maybe the father has a checking credit card, but the mother does not, or the teenage son does not. So maybe in that case, you can create an automatic lead through business processes for a student credit card, right? Because they are sharing the same household address. So with that, what you can do is making sure that the leads are much more suitable, and therefore when you're talking to the household of that, anybody in that household, this recommendation will pop up saying that, hey, listen, based upon everything, this is the best product to position to them. So there are many cool ways in which you can leverage machine learning and predict what kind of either actions, next best actions, or next best offers to the customer. In addition to that, if anybody in the audience has used specific searches, right? What we have done is we have made improvements to the search. So what that means is if you don't have to fully type in Alexander Wilson in this case, maybe a partial search, it will still go and search that. So there's a lot of effort that has been made in terms of global search, which is a mini service for Creatio that has been completely enhanced. And from a user experience perspective, both for the account management and also from an email perspective, I'm not quite sure how many of you have actually seen this, but you can build a really deep, complex accounts and relationships between them. And right now we are also in the position, we are currently having a roadmap where we are having a very complex account contacts relationships in here. I can't show that mock-up right now. It is on a need-to-know basis only. But I can tell you that it was inspired from a financial advisory industry, where a financial advisors typically can work in multiple firms, right? So maybe Monday to Tuesday, they can work with Edward Jones. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, maybe they're working at Ameriprise Financial, for example. So a single financial advisor could work with multiple firms. They could work with multiple admins to do the paperwork. So the financial advisor firm has to know who should they work with, what are the complex relationships between them, so you can build all of that very nicely in that new upcoming feature. But that is scheduled for end of this year, but that's currently in progress. And also from a heading perspective, none of these headings will move. Previously, if you move this, then these headings would also move up. So we kind of made this headings fixed. And also from an email perspective, now you can have a very simple way of setting up or a more easier user-friendly way of setting up user emails, whether from inbound or from outbound, and what kind of ports and security, and how are you going to log in? Is that through a email address as a login, or the mail name, or specific email address? Linux Core has been extended from a Linux for the .NET Core support has been extended to both the Studio Creatio Enterprise and also for the CRM perspective, mainly from the financial services, which is one of the key industry vertical that Creatio is focused on. And PostgreSQL support is also supported on the financial services, and also OData 4 is now the standard support. Moving on to the mobile side, one cool thing that I really liked about with the latest version, and I've been using this for quite some time now, is a synchronization. And I've noticed a huge speed in terms of synchronizing data between the website with the web interface and also the mobile interface. So typically I had to wait a couple of minutes previously, but now because of improvements on the mobile side, synchronization has gone up by 6 times, which is pretty cool. And also, if you want to share a link for a specific opportunity or a contact or whatever that may be, now you get this option to share that link. So you can simply share that link to your manager or to a counterpart through an email, and that way they can reach out to that opportunity as well. So that is pretty cool. So that was basically a summary of updates on the business process side and also from a low-code technology. So now we're going to pivot into analytics. And the reason we are focused on the analytics is that a lot of our customers these days are asking us to compare Creatio with the tools like Power BI or Tableau, right? So while we do support a lot of those analytics, we by definition are not those BI tools, and we don't aspire to be, at least at this point of time, but we need to provide them with decent amount of charts and reports to make it as simple as possible. So for example, one of the key requirements was the creation of PDF file, right? So for many of you who have used previous reports, you are kind of restricted to the Word doc or the Word Excel or something like that, mainly Microsoft Office. So PDF was one of the commonly requested reports to be created right out of Creatio, maybe from an order management perspective, maybe from a contract management, whatever that may be. So that has been enabled now with 7.16.1. Is that we have switched over to fast report. So the technology has changed. So that enables us to create this PDF, and also you can create a lot more complex charts as well. And they are very cool in terms of user experience that has been made as well. Now, from an analytics perspective, we also changed technology to chart.js. So why did we do that, right? Number one was because of the performance. So the performance of creating these cool charts and making it show up as rapidly as possible is much enhanced in that newer technology. The second is obviously security. There used to be a denial of service with the prior technology that we used to have. And thirdly was the component consistency. What we mean by that is that prior to 7.16.1, the dashboards in mobile device, Creatio application, mobile device used to be chart.js, whereas desktop was the previous technology. So bringing desktop or the desktop version to the chart.js, now we are showing that all of the dashboards are using the same technology. So therefore, whatever view that you're seeing in desktop is automatically shown in the mobile device as well. So when I meant by performance, what I really meant was loading speed, right? So what we have done is focus on improving the speed in which the analytics gets loaded. So as you can see, we have seen up to twice the loading speed in terms of displaying graphs. And also in terms of, and we did that by making sure that if you're on this screen, only these screens are being created in the background, right? So when you only create what is being displayed, obviously the speed goes up. So we are kind of taking advantage of the newer technology to make sure that the speed goes up. The second thing is different charts, right? One of the frustrating things and I'll show this as a demo as well, and how you can do that, is the ability to stack things together. Previously, if you needed to have different cities, right? So for example, if you wanted to create leads and opportunities for, say, different individuals, like say John West, Mary King, Valerie Murphy, you had to have one lead, one opportunity, one lead, one opportunity. So you have to create a different series by different sales reps. Now you don't have to worry about it. You can kind of stack them together. And more importantly, you now get the access ability to use the legends, right? And not only get the legend, but simply highlighting or left clicking on that, those graphs will disappear so that you can do some querying of, especially when the height of those charts can become very small. So here's a little bit more version of the stack bar for both the bar chart, and you can also do that from the horizontal chart as well. Finally, my favorite is the list. So what I mean by this is basically you can create pivot tables in Creatio with 7.16.1. So for people who have used this now, you'll see a new setting called pivot table settings, where you can create different kind of pivot tables, and then also take a picture of that and use that in the reports in a very meaningful way. So with that, let me switch over to the demo side. I know I kind of talked a lot, so you're probably wanting to see the demo instead. So let's go ahead and switch over. So right now, you're looking at the latest version of Creatio. So I've very conveniently created a dashboard called Tech Advisors Users Group so that I don't have to search for it. And we are also using 7.16.2, as you can see on the screen. And also, if you paid attention, you might have noticed that there's a new search right in here. So basically, what this means is that if you have a lot of these tabs in here, you can actually start searching for it. So for example, if I want to search if there's anything related to KPIs, I simply type that, select that, and it'll take me directly into that. Oh, sorry, so I have to log in, so I'm not logged in a while. So KPIs, select that, and it'll take you right there, and also it'll rapidly redraw that graph for you, right? So that is another easy way for you to do that, and you can see that you can also favorite those things so that you'll be able to, when you come into the folder, you'll be able to say what are your favorite charts, and then you can simply click on each one of them and be taken directly to that. So this is an easy way to start querying when you have a lot of those charts, and then you can also favorite them as needed. Now, what we're going to do with this specific chart is that we are going to start putting opportunities and then show you how to do the stack charts in here. So let's first open this up and start editing it. Double click, let's go there. And now you can see that this is basically a graph for leads that was created on, formatted by month and year, and created on as of this current year. So if I want to create a new chart and maybe make some modifications to that, I can simply come in here and click on, say, copy series, right? So now you can see that it simply copied basically whatever there was over here, And now I can make changes this to last year if I wanted it, right? And maybe make it previous year. Now I can see that. Or if I don't want to do that, I'm simply going to change the object itself and change this to say opportunity. I want to do the same thing. I want to group it by created on, month and year, and make sure that this is created on current year, just like I did with previous things. Change the color, say to purple or violet, and now change the caption to opportunities. So this is how you can simply take an existing ones and then copy them as well. So right now, when I click on show legend, you can see that the legend shows up. But more importantly, if I want to make this a stacked, all I have to do is to check with stacked. And now you can see that what was prior over here has now come up on top of that. So that's how simple it is in terms of creating a stacked charts in Creatio. So let's go ahead and click save. And save this again. And once you're in here, obviously, if I click on opportunities, it gets rid of that. If I click on leads, completely empty. And again, left click on that, and you can do same sort of querying of those charts like you used to do. Basically, it's just say display data. So what I meant was, if this is too difficult for you to search, simply click on leads. Now you have much more real estate to start displaying data for that. The second option that I was talking about was pivot, right? So for that, we will be using the list view. So this is a pretty boring list view. So when I'm showing you all of the opportunities that is closed on for, I think this is for current quarter. I have the opportunity amount, owner, and account. So, but if you want to make it a little bit more interesting, you can with pivot tables. So simply double click on that. It takes you to that. So if you want to add additional columns, obviously you can add additional columns in here. And these are all the various display options. But now what we're going to do is to make this into pivot tables. So when I flip over to the pivot table settings, now you'll see that all of those columns that was available to me is over here. And then I can group them by different rows and different columns, right? So first thing what I want to do is to select the owner. I want everything to be grouped by the owner. And after grouping by the owner, I want to group it by, say, account. And if you feel that this is, if you need to move it up, you can move that as well. That's very easy. It's all drag and drop. And then maybe for name, let's do name here, and then opportunity amount. And then what's basically going to happen is it's going to give you a preview of what this section looks like. You can actually expand that and see that now I've selected by the owner, by the account, and now everything is grouped by the opportunity amount itself. So whatever opportunity is, so 17 is mapped to Caleb Jones, nobody else. Everybody else is getting 0. 88 is mapped to Caleb Jones. So you can see that I'm getting amounts by different opportunity amounts. That is one way to do that. And if you click save, this is basically the view that you're going to see. Now you can get creative as well. If you don't like this view, you can also modify that. So I can simply double click on that. Let's go to pivot tables, and rather than have the name here, what I can then do is I can drag the name below the account. So what I now am going to do is I'm going to have owner, whatever accounts that they're part of, and within the accounts, it will have individual opportunities. And then I can say closed on. When are we going to close? So it's going to go sequentially from today's date onwards to whatever is open opportunities that is available for me. So if I click save now, you can see that now I've done a pivot table where I'm now getting, I can group it by different customer or different owner, and have different accounts. And within different accounts, they have different opportunities. And then I can take a look at, oh, this opportunity is going to close on 720 at 48K. So this is a great way for you to start doing pivoting and having a different perspective of having views of the same information, but served in a different way. All right, so with that, I'm going to pivot right back to show you what else is upcoming. What else we are thinking in terms of having development plans for reporting? So as you can see from our Q2 perspective, we've already done that. We've done the pivot tables, formulas and tables. We're doing some new filtering modules. I kind of showed that to you very quickly using the search functionality and having some favorites. And now there are some new chart types that we're going to focus on in 2021 and 2022. Now, keep in mind that this is, we need to have a safe harbor statement. Doesn't mean that we will accomplish every one of them. So a lot of them has to depend upon priority and is there any other functionality that could come along that might override whatever we currently have in pipeline, right? So what are some of the cool charts that we're looking at? So for example, we're looking to the Japanese candle, right? So what this means is for a specific data, there is a range of data. We can have that as a Japanese candle. We are also looking at bubble charts in Creatio. This might be very helpful from an opportunity perspective to understand what are the top opportunities and the size of the opportunities from a sales side. There is also the Radial Chart, so where you can have two different data points, and then you can kind of split up into or petal chart, as you can call it. And there's also Radar Chart. So people who have used some of those Brigg-Myers personality tests might be very familiar with this. So it's basically picking up different attributes, and within different attributes, you pick the value of each of them. So these are some of the cool charts that is currently in our pipeline in terms of what is going to come up in 2021 and 2022. And we are going to the last section, which is 7.16.2, what is already available. And I only have 2 more slides, and we'll open up to Q&A after this. So in terms of core functionality, I'm not going to read everything, but basically, if you have worked on new queues, so if you have created a queue object for, say, orders or leads or activities that are not standard, or even if you create a new queue for case management, prior to this, you had to put the status and priority. So now we kind of pre-populated by default. Any attachments in the emails, now we'll have a nice little attachment icon there in the communications panel. And then any links in terms of in the email, oh, I'm sorry, that was a different one, but email attachment is now displayed correctly as you send from Creatio. We've also upgraded from a marketing perspective to SendGrid as of 7.16.2. It used to be Elastic email before. One of the frequent complaints that we got with Elastic was that some of the emails could go into the junk email. So when it, which was kind of defeating the purpose of sending bulk emails to our customers. So now we switched over to SendGrid. So that we have seen that the ability of it to go to junk has been reduced significantly because it's a newer technology. And also in SendGrid, you have the ability to send it in bulks. So for example, if you have, say, 20,000 bulk emails to be sent out, you can say send 5,000 at a time. So you can do that. And now you can also copy a bulk email and basically send it out without doing any other modifications. And now also the content blocks is now properly being displayed. So all of those are also available in our release notes. So in summary, what we have gone through is basically looking at business processes. What are the focus mainly on the user experience. Then we switched gears, took a look into the low-code technology and our vision on how Creatio is going to become a player in the low-code platform in the years to come, and our plans to do that. Then we switched gears and looked into analytics based upon a lot of user requests. And also I showed you a roadmap of what are some of the newer charts that we are exploring, and concluded that with the 7.16.2 features. So with that, I am going to stop sharing and make Diane make you back as a host again.
Thank you, Nandish. Wow, so much great information here. Not gonna lie, those pivot table options are very exciting. I really
That is my
like,
favorite, yeah.
Yeah, I can see why. They're fantastic. We'll give a couple more questions, a couple more moments here for questions to come in, but you clearly did an excellent job because so far, no questions. But of course, if anyone has anything come to mind in these next few moments, please ask. In the meantime, I'll just mention that aside from receiving this presentation in your inbox, if you ever want to re-reference this or other Creatio user group recordings, you can find them all on our website at techadv.com. For those of you who haven't visited our website recently, if you go there today, you'll notice that it has a new look and feel, a ton of new content and pages for you to comb through. We're definitely really pumped about it, so we're looking forward to all of you seeing it and sharing your feedback. And I recommend checking out all of our Creatio user group videos on the videos page on that website. So let me just check again here. Seemingly fine. If there are no questions, we'll wrap things up. If any questions arise after the fact, maybe you're still mulling this over and you know, something comes up, please feel free to email me at marketing@techadv.com and I will work to get those questions answered for you. So I would just like to thank you again, Nandish, for your time today and this super informative presentation. A lot of really exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. So we'll have plenty more material for upcoming user groups.
Absolutely, absolutely. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody, and have a lovely rest of your week.
Bye, everyone.